faithfully delivering value and interpreting great books worldwide. Hello, this is Sally's Book Club. Today we'll explore the railway journey, subtitled The Industrialization of Space and Time in the 19th Century. In 1825, George Stephenson's locomotion steam engine carried 450 passengers and cargo over 30 kilometers of track, heralding the dawn of the railway age. As we'd say today, railways peaked right after their debut, quickly conquering Britain, spreading across Europe, then worldwide, becoming icons of modernity and industrial civilization. Today's book, The Railway Journey, takes you back to the 19th century West. Through railway development, we'll explore key traits of industrial civilization and modern society. The author, Wolfgang Schivelbusch, is a German historian and cultural studies scholar. After earning his PhD at Freie Universität Berlin, he became an independent researcher specializing in interdisciplinary cultural studies, particularly blending technology and intellectual history. The railway journey we're discussing today is one of his seminal works. Schivelbusch argues railways aren't just transportation, they actively reshape their users. Many modern perceptions and sensibilities emerged directly from railway development. Truly, railways transported us from traditional society into modernity, making us modern people. Now, let's examine 3 ways railways ushered us into modern life. First, how railways transformed our perception of the world. Second, how railways altered our psychology. Third, how railways launched humanity into the mobility era. In part 1, we'll discuss how railways changed our perception of the world. First, unlike traditional transport, railways' most obvious trait was speed. This reshaped travelers' relationship with space and rewired our visual processing. Early English steam locomotives averaged 30 to 50 kilometers per hour. To us high-speed train veterans today, that speed seems unremarkable. But back then, the locomotive's counterpart was the horse-drawn carriage. People sitting on trains felt speeds 2 to 3 times faster than the top speed of a horse-drawn carriage. In the era of carriage or walking travel, travelers appreciated the scenery gradually along the way. Thus, they felt a close connection to the landscapes and terrains along the route. For instance, Goethe once traveled to Switzerland by carriage. His travel diary mentioned vineyards in Sachsenhausen and limestone-paved roads. He even wrote about a man, wrapped in rope, with iron clamps attached diagonally, climbing a tall birch tree. Such an intimate relationship between travelers and the travel space vanished in the railway era. 19th century people described trains as cannonballs, feeling like sitting on one shot from place to place, unable to see the scenery clearly or control their own sensations. In 1844, an anonymous author wrote that on most trains, the natural beauty of landscapes, hills, valleys, transitions in elevation, and refreshing breezes became invisible or distorted. All the joyful things associated with the road were lost too. The French literary giant Victor Hugo said in a letter that roadside flowers were no longer flowers, they became spots or even stripes. Oh, red and white dots all vanished, turning into stripes, wheat fields like masses of yellow hair, pastures like long green hair, towns, spires, and forests danced wildly and chaotically on the horizon. However, human adaptability is astonishing. Soon after, train passengers developed a new ability to adapt to and even appreciate the fleeting landscapes. In 1853, a traveler wrote, "England seen from a train is the most charming England. I enjoy fantasizing about soaring through the air while swiftly passing these serene landscapes, like riding a tornado." In 1861, a Frenchman named Gaston published an essay collection called Life on the Railway. The book likened the train landscape to a comedy stage. The steam engine was a powerful stagehand, flicking a switch to change the scenery and alter perspectives every moment. In rapid succession, it presented astonished passengers with joyful scenes, sad sights, Ridiculous vignettes, splendid fireworks, all vanishing as soon as they were seen. The book's author, Shivelbush, called this perception ability born from train speed panoramic perception. It refers to a way of viewing without selection, an ability to perceive discontinuous things.
The increase in speed generated vast amounts of visual information that needed processing.
This provided the brain with rapid and constantly changing stimuli. People learned to adapt to and digest these stimuli, learning to grasp the overall picture through speed. However, as the saying goes, gain comes with loss. The fast-moving, flat landscapes seen through train windows lost detail and depth, causing people to lose sensitivity to details while learning to grasp the big picture. Having discussed how trains changed people's perceptual abilities, now let's talk about how it changed our behavioral patterns, making reading a daily travel routine. Trains were not only creators of modern speed, but also a new type of mobile enclosed space. Before railways, travelers in the same stagecoach or public carriage would frequently converse even if strangers, because they had stable expectations about fellow travelers' identities and destinations. Interaction felt very natural. But in rail travel, the passenger beside or opposite you might stay for a long time or get off at the next stop. In such situations, passengers no longer engage in intensive conversations and interactions. They start keeping to themselves. For example, Maupassant has a famous novel called Boule de Suif, which tells the story of 10 French people escaping during the Franco-Prussian War in the same carriage. This is a typical story that could only happen in the carriage era. If on a train, those passengers might not say a word to each other, let alone know what anyone does. That said, train compartments are still relatively enclosed spaces. It's awkward for a group to sit in silence together for long periods. To avoid this awkwardness, people at the time found a good solution: reading. By focusing on books, they avoided eye contact or awkward small talk with strangers. Moreover, trains run much more smoothly than carriages. This made reading during travel possible, and savvy merchants quickly spotted a business opportunity. In 1848, Euston Station on the Birmingham Railway had the first railway bookstore. In 1852, France followed Britain's lead and opened the first French railway newsstand. By the 1860s, reading had become travelers' most common activity, a tradition continuing today, where people on high-speed trains and subways still focus on their own devices, though now phones or iPads replace books and newspapers. In 1843, the German poet Heine, with a genius poet's sensitivity, prophesied, "The railway's emergence, like gunpowder in the printing press, brings unimaginable consequences. It will even shake our most fundamental notions of time and space." As Heine predicted, trains revolutionized people's perception of time and space. Note that this concept of space-time isn't physical or mathematical, but socio-cultural, referring to the relationship between distance and potential possibilities. Simply put, it's a sense of proximity. Let's take high-speed rail as an example. Previously, traveling from Shanghai to Nanjing took 3 to 4 hours by train or longer. High-speed rail shortened this journey to just over an hour. Did the actual distance between Shanghai and Nanjing change? Of course not. But in people's perception, these two places suddenly became much closer. This is speed's compression of space-time. Before trains, human history had never experienced such drastic space-time compression. Railways doubled travel speeds, shrinking the world by 2/3 in people's minds. With newer, faster transportation emerging and evolving, space-time in human consciousness continues to shrink. That concludes part 1. High-speed trains first impacted human senses, developing panoramic perception that allowed grasping the big picture at speed, yet diminished sensitivity to detail and depth. Additionally, trains cultivated individualized habits in public transport. Less conversation with fellow travelers, more time spent reading alone. Finally, railways endowed us with entirely new space-time concepts. Our mental world shrank. These industrial civilization modern sensibilities are railways' transformative impact on humanity. Yet railways' transformation didn't stop there. They psychologically reshaped modern people, triggering anxiety and nostalgia. These two common psychological symptoms of modern society, anxiety and nostalgia, will be specifically explored in Part 2 regarding how railways triggered them. And from the day people became train passengers, they harbored deep concerns about this modern transportation. For instance, passengers on early steam trains experienced constant jolts and vibrations. This led to new terms like railway spine, referring to spinal damage from continuous train vibrations, and metal fatigue, where mechanical vibrations between train and tracks caused passenger exhaustion. In 1962, the Lancet Medical Journal authoritatively declared the abrupt, short shocks and vibrations of trains adversely affect physical health. Moreover, early train compartments could only be entered externally with no internal connections. Thus, train compartments became perceived as ideal crime scenes, roaring wheels drowning out even the loudest screams. Passengers in adjacent compartments might see and hear nothing before a crime occurred. Later, spring cushioned seats were added to reduce jolting, making cushions widely popular. Entering ordinary households, today's cushion and pillow users may not know these originated from railways. For compartment safety, solutions included installing train-wide speaking tubes or alarm pull cords. The French devised peepholes between compartments, believing criminals would be deterred by potential witnesses. Ultimately, engineer Walderd redesigned trains with side corridors separated by sliding doors. This allowed entry through corridor-connected doors only, a design still used in modern sleeper cars. Yet, solving these issues didn't eliminate all train travel anxieties. After all, trains were simply too fast. The earliest passengers always sensed an underlying dread during journeys. For instance, a British politician traveling by train in 1829 said, "This feels like flying. Even the smallest accident could kill me instantly. I can't stop thinking about it." No. And today we're familiar with this technology-induced fear. While tech opens new paths, it also seems to place us on a cliff's edge where any misstep is catastrophic. Take transportation. Higher speeds mean more severe accidents. People today may fear trains less, but many still feel uneasy on planes until safe landing. This fear comes with helplessness, trapped in a fast machine with zero control. Though we rationally tell ourselves not to fear, the fear doesn't vanish, just gets suppressed. It resurfaces in a new form, anxiety. Psychologist Freud believed anxiety stems from repressed fear, a state anticipating danger, even unknown, keeping us prepared. Incidentally, fear of train accidents spawned a modern term. Derailment, originally trains leaving tracks, now widely means infidelity in relationships. By this analogy,
Because people fear sexual autonomy like derailments. Both are destructive, uncontrollable forces.
now let's examine how railways triggered nostalgia. As trains replaced carriages, people developed special fondness for horse-drawn transport. British writer De Quincey lamented that new transport lost the human-nature connection. He believed old postal carriages offered a vibrant, joyful animal sensation. A 1837 book, England's Amusement Carriages, wrote, "Steam is mere labor, an emotionless drudge that just persists. Horses weren't like that. They were beautiful, intelligent creatures, strong yet gentle, responsive to kindness while shunning cruelty." It is precisely this glorification of horses that made equestrianism a competitive sport for the privileged class. Nostalgia is a common emotion in modern society. In every busy modern person's heart, there echoes an idyllic, natural, pastoral melody of leisure. For example, when China entered the high-speed rail era, the old green trains suddenly seemed more soulful. Many nostalgic articles began extolling the virtues of green trains. Their windows could open, letting passengers enjoy natural breezes and scenery. People would chat, play cards, and snack on sunflower seeds, happy as if on vacation. Isn't this glorification of green trains strikingly similar to British train passengers' nostalgia for carriages?
However,
Shivelbush reminds us that nostalgia's essence is this: we can't view things aesthetically while they dominate. Only when replaced by new technology do they gain charm. The past wasn't truly that wonderful. Modernity simply swept us into a high-speed machine. Nostalgia is merely our inner lament against unstoppable velocity. That concludes part 2. Train travel evoked fear of death, which further triggered anxiety. Additionally, as trains replaced carriages, they sparked nostalgia for older technologies, endowing them with poetic beauty.
Note that anxiety and nostalgia weren't solely caused by railways.
Yet, understanding railway-induced anxiety helps us grasp its roots and essence.
Now, in part 3, we broaden our view to examine how railways launched humanity into the mobility era.
Actually, before railways, humans migrated, traveled nomadically, and journeyed long distances. But railways enabled unprecedented human mobility, ushering the West and humanity into the transportation age. From railways onward, highways, light rails, airplanes, all kept conquering time and space, interweaving the world at ever faster speeds. Today's world is a vast transportation network. Why did railways, not other transport, open this era? This stems from a key trait of railways: unifying transport routes and methods. From the beginning, railways combined trains and tracks into one system. In early railway innovation, steam engines were mounted on chassis and propelled by interlocking gears along tracks. Locomotives, tracks, and gears formed one large machine. Its performance hinged on perfect component alignment. Early steam locomotive developers imagined railways functioning like traditional road systems. For example, in 1802, Englishman Richard Edgeworth proposed adding tracks to existing roads with movable chassis. When needed, brackets could haul carriages onto tracks, letting passengers enjoy steam speed without leaving their vehicles, like hitchhiking while walking. The plan's convenience lay in allowing trains and carriages to share roads without major modifications.
However, the theory looked plump, while reality proved bony.
People quickly realized roads with trains on left and carriages on right were practically impossible. Forget designing complex carriage transfer brackets. What if a horse suddenly veered onto the tracks mid-gallop? The solution was clear. Railways had to become independent from road systems. This was crucial. Before railways, transport routes, roads or canals, and vehicles operated independently. Railways ended this loose arrangement, technologically merging routes and vehicles. Since railways were destined for independence, step 1 was laying dedicated tracks, very different from road construction. For smooth, fast operation, tracks needed to be smooth, level, hard, and straight. Achieving this required massive earth moving before track laying, creating level roadbeds on rugged terrain. If the terrain has major undulations like valleys or peaks, methods like tunneling or building viaducts are needed to overcome them. Through road building, embankments, tunnels, and viaducts, machine precision conquered nature's chaos, creating ruler-straight rail tracks across the land. But this is just the first step. Previously, road-building investment companies could basically lie back and collect money once roads were finished. They didn't care if you were riding a horse in a carriage or a rickshaw on that road. You could stroll around freely as long as you paid the toll. But railway companies didn't have it so easy. Ensuring safe, fast train operation requires many things, starting with technical safeguards. Forget major accidents like collisions. Even a track obstruction could cause disaster if a speeding train can't brake in time. In early railway travel, each carriage had 1 or 2 people dedicated to lookout, watching for obstacles or approaching trains. But in poor light, fog, or noise, relying solely on human power was clearly insufficient. In this context, the telegraph debuted. Telegraph systems were already advanced in the early 19th century, but railways finally gave them purpose. The telegraph system divided tracks into independent blocks, each managed by an operator who signaled engineers to proceed or stop urgently. The visual imagery of telegraphs also became a key marker of railway travel. Passengers could see not only the scenery but also receding telegraph poles and glinting wires. The railway system also spawned standard time, familiar to modern people. Today, when we discuss time differences, we think they only exist between different time zones. There are 24 time zones worldwide, with each adjacent zone differing by 1 hour. But before the railway era, time differences existed between European cities, e.g., London time was 4 minutes ahead of Reading time. It was 7 minutes and 30 seconds ahead of Cirencester, and 14 minutes ahead of Bridgewater. Such time differences were insignificant to people in the pre-railway era, because travel time itself outweighed the minor time variations between places. A gentleman traveling by stagecoach from his country estate to London could simply adjust his pocket watch as usual and remain a punctual English gentleman. However, railway companies couldn't tolerate these minor time variations.
Trains raced at high speeds along the tracks. Any time discrepancy could have severe consequences.
Therefore, in 1880, British railway companies decided to adopt Greenwich Mean Time as the standard for the national rail network. When all railway companies scheduled trains by Greenwich time, all local times across Britain were forced to align with railway time. By now, we understand. Everything from track laying to telegraph systems to time standardization ensured this massive integrated machine could transport people and goods rapidly between locations without mishaps. Thus, railways became the first modern transportation system. Modern transport features include technical unification of routes and vehicles, technological safeguards, and strict regulations. Most importantly, its purpose is highly efficient movement of people and goods. Rail networks spread across the land, connecting cities, enabling unprecedented mass mobility, soon influencing urban interiors. Tracks terminated at city stations, flooding urban centers with torrents of people and goods.
To accommodate this massive flow, transforming old street systems became essential.
These road transformations directly followed railway design principles, seeking track-like smoothness, hardness, levelness, and straightness. The underlying logic stemmed from railway's core trait, unified consciousness of transport routes and vehicles. In 19th century Western urban redesign, Paris's reconstruction was most representative. Director Baron Haussmann directly applied railway track principles to road design, minimizing curves wherever possible. And additionally, streets were built extra wide to accommodate greater traffic flow, meaning these roads served purely for vehicle movement. Haussmann's streets differed from medieval alleys. Those narrow lanes primarily served public gathering. Nor were they like Baroque avenues, those grand streets meant for display and ceremony. The newly built Paris roads weren't people-friendly or aesthetically focused. Their sole purpose was connection. As Frenchman Fournel put it, where roads once stood, buildings now rise.
While new roads pushed through demolished building ruins, advancing in all directions, as if attacking anything encountered, knocking them down, toppling them, flattening them.
Incidentally, during this reconstruction, the nostalgia mentioned in Part 2 unsurprisingly resurfaced. Many French criticized Haussmann's redesign for stripping Paris of diversity, spontaneity, picturesque charm, and discovery. What Haussmann didn't foresee, as he reshaped Paris, London was building a pure urban transport system. The subway. The subway, urban underground railways, serves transportation with absolute dedication,
Reducing place-to-place relationships to point-to-point connections.
Today, when riding subways, we consider routes and timings. Which line, how many stops, where to transfer. Architecture and scenery between origin and destination remain unseen and irrelevant. Post-railway transport modes all embody modern features pioneered by railways. Unified routes, vehicles, tech safeguards, strict regulations. Highways for cars only. Subways, light rails, bullet trains with exclusive vehicles and schedules, planes with strict routes, altitudes, timings. Railways gave humanity modern transport and instilled a mobility consciousness. Today we believe communication, exchange, and movement drive enlightenment or progress. Isolation and disconnection are obstacles to overcome. This now self-evident concept was remarkably advanced. Chivalbush notes, as railways and steamships spread, transport became the 19th century West's core concept. People began believing a society's health or vitality depends on functioning transport systems. The more widespread and rapid the circulation of people and goods, the healthier and more vibrant the entire society becomes. This reverence for circulation soon permeated the commercial realm. It's shortly after Western European cities, led by Paris, were transformed into hubs of traffic flow, department stores began to emerge.
Unlike traditional retail, department stores didn't aim for high purchase rates, but high circulation rates.
For example, in traditional small shops, 8 out of 10 customers might buy something, but these shops could only hold up to 10 people at once. Whereas in department stores, only 1 out of 10 customers might buy, but they could accommodate hundreds, thousands, even tens of thousands. Merchants realized that as long as the base was large enough, a lower purchase rate didn't matter. They just needed to attract as many customers as possible and maintain a constant flow. This was the dawn of today's traffic economy. And as customers walked through department stores, the panoramic perception they developed from trains came into play. They'd ignore specific details of each item, but feel the overall coherence and appeal of masses of goods under one roof. All right, that concludes part 3. Due to its unique traits, railways developed into an independent transport system. To ensure smooth operation, people employed mechanical means, technical safeguards, and strict rules. The economy are lightly, making railways the first modern transport system and ushering humanity into the mobility era. Transport became the core concept of the 19th century Industrial Revolution and the most iconic landscape of modern society. With that, we've covered the main content of this book. As a symbol of modernity, railways reshaped human senses, behaviors, psychology, and worldviews while changing the world, modernizing us humans. Today, we are humans adapted to modernization, though this adaptation has cost us something. So rather than lamenting that we can't go back, we should examine and understand the present and look towards a future full of wonders and surprises. All right, that wraps up our interpretation of the railway journey. Notes are below the audio. See you next time.